20 child stars who vanished from Hollywood then and now. They were the faces we loved on our TV screens and movie theaters. Their smiles were on magazine covers, and their names were big on signs across America. But then, suddenly, they were gone. 30 child stars, who once had the world at their feet. Household names from Hollywood's golden days. What happened to these sweet young talents when the cameras stopped? Some of their stories will break your heart, while others might just bring back your faith in people. Now, let's jump into these cool stories one by one, starting with some of the most loved kid performers from the 1930s through the 1970s. 1. Bobby Driscoll. Crying face. Bobby Driscoll wasn't just any kid actor. He was Disney's first signed kid star, the voice of Peter Pan, and the face of Treasure Island. With his Academy Juvenile Award at just 12 years old for his acting in The Window, and so dear to my heart, his future looked endless. But growing up hit Bobby hard. His cute baby face, once his best thing, started changing. Pimples marked his skin and his looks grew up. Walt Disney himself, who had once treated Bobby like a son, ended his contract fast in 1953, just 3 years after he had starred in the studio's live action hit, Treasure Island. Showbiz insiders say that Disney bosses claimed Bobby had become tough to work with, but the real deal was way meaner. He simply no longer fit the look they wanted. Dropped by Disney and called done at 16, Bobby fell into an awful spiral of drug addiction and small crimes. His parents, not sure how to handle his growing problems, sent him to a fix-up center, but it did little good. By his early 20s, he was deep into heroin addiction, arrested lots of times, and totally cut off from the show world that had once cheered him. The last part of Bobby's life reads like a sad old story. In 1968, kids playing in an empty old building in New York City found the body of a man. With no ID, he was buried in an unmarked poor person's grave on Hart Island. Almost 2 years later, his mom, having lost touch with her son, asked the NYPD to reopen their look into his missing case. Fingerprint records showed the sad truth. The unclaimed body was Bobby Driscoll, dead at 31 from heart failure, caused by his longtime drug use. The boy who once flew as Peter Pan ended his days alone, forgotten and not known, perhaps the meanest twist in a life that started with such promise. Margaret O'Brien, number 2. Smiling face with smiling eyes, unlike Bobby's sad tale. Margaret O'Brien's story takes a more happy turn. As a kid, she grabbed audiences with her deep feelings in films like Meet Me in St. Louis, next to Judy Garland. Her acting as Tootie Smith got her a special Academy Juvenile Award, and her skill to cry on cue made her one of Venice's most valuable kid treasures. By the early 1950s, however, Margaret's career had slowed a lot. The change from cute kid to teen proved tough and roles got rare. Rather than chasing fewer chances, Margaret made a smart choice to step away from Hollywood's bright lights. What happened next breaks the usual kid star story. Margaret turned her energy to school and a private life. She got married and focused on family, doing some spots on TV and theater, but never trying to get back her old shine. Today, at 87 years old, Margaret O'Brien lives a quiet life in California. Unlike many of her old pals, she handled her money well and stays one of the few living ties to Hollywood's golden age. She sometimes shows up at film fests and classic movie events where fans are thrilled to find she's kept the same gentle spirit and warm smile that won them over more than 8 decades ago. Margaret's choice to leave Hollywood on her own terms rather than being kicked out by changing tastes or fading fans shows a road less taken among kid stars, one of nice exit rather than painful kickout. Claude Jarman Jr., number 3. Glowing star when The Yearling came out in 1946, critics and watchers alike were hooked by the real acting of 12-year-old Claude Jarman Jr. as Jody Baxter. His true show of a boy and his pet deer in rural Florida got him an Academy Juvenile Award and seemed to promise a long, winning career in movies. Yet by the early 1950s, Claude's name was gone from signs and his face vanished from movie screens. What happened to this talented young actor who had once shared the screen with Gregory Peck and Jane Wyman? Unlike many kid stars who were pushed out of the showbiz, Claude made the rare choice to leave Hollywood on his own. As a teen, he saw that school might give more steady life than the up-and-down movie world. After being in cool but less money-making films like Intruder in the Dust, Claude chose to go back to his home in Tennessee to finish high school with real friends instead of on studio lots. After graduating, Claude went to Vanderbilt University rather than chasing comeback roles. He served in the Navy before finally settling in San Francisco, where he took a job far from Hollywood cameras as the top boss of the San Francisco International Film Festival for 15 years. Today, at 89, Claude Jarman Jr. lives a full life with his family, sometimes giving talks about his short but big part in movie history. His choice to put school and a normal life over fame stands out against pals who held tight to acting past their best days, often with awful results. Microphone few kid stars reached the level of world fame that wrapped Deanna Durbin in the late 1930s and early 1940s. Her high singing voice and sweet image made her one of Universal Studios' most money-making stars, said to save the studio from going broke. Her fans were so huge that a club just for her had more members than any other stars at the time. By age 21, Deanna was the second highest paid woman in America, behind only Bette Davis, getting $400,000 per film. Yet at the top of her career, Deanna made a shocking news that stunned Hollywood and broke millions of fans' hearts. At just 27 years old, she was quitting films for good. Unlike other stars pushed out by changing tastes or getting older, Deanna walked away from a $200,000 per year deal, giving up a career that others would have fought to death for. In 1949, after finishing her 21st film, For the Love of Mary, Deanna Durbin just vanished from public life. She moved to a small village outside Paris, France, married her third husband, producer Charles David, and for the next 64 years of her life, said no to almost all interview asks and turned down every offer to come back to performing. Her step back was so total that many younger Americans have never even heard her name, even though she was once one of the most famous women in the world. When asked years later about her choice, Deanna made a rare comment: "I was never happy in Hollywood. I couldn't deal with the fake life I was expected to live." She explained that the made-up image of the forever girl next door had become too much to breathe, and no amount of money could make up for losing her privacy and real self. Deanna lived quietly in France until her death in 2013 at age 91. Always saying no to all tries to pull her back into the lights. Her clear choice to walk away from fame and money stays may be the most dramatic self-made vanishing in Hollywood history. 5. Brandon DeWilde, number 5. Automobile with his blonde hair and big blue eyes, Brandon DeWilde won Hearts and Shane 1953, saying the famous line, "Shane, come back." That still rings in movie history. His acting got him an Academy Award nod at just 11 years old, making him one of the youngest ever. Unlike many kid actors who fight to find grown-up roles, Brandon made it to teen parts in films like HUD. Next to Paul Newman in TV shows, including The Virginian, his skills seemed to promise a long winning career as an adult actor. But life had other plans for Brandon. In July 1972, while driving near Denver, Colorado, he lost control of his truck and crashed into a building truck. At just 30 years old, Brandon DeWilde's bright life was cut sadly short. The boy who had once called for Shane to come back would never return to the screen himself. His death at such a young age left fans wondering what could have been. Critics think Brandon had the skill and range to become one of his time's best side actors. Instead, his movie list stays stuck at a small 17 films, a little but big mark. Brandon's story reminds us of how breakable life is and how fast bright careers can end. While not a vanishing by choice, his early death took him from Hollywood's star group just as he was entering what should have been his best years as an actor. Girl, no talk of kid stars could start anywhere but with Shirley Temple, the most famous kid actor in Hollywood history. With her bouncy curls and dimpled smile, she alone lifted American hearts during the Great Depression. By age 7, she was earning $50,000 per film, equal to nearly $1 million today, and her stuff from dolls to clotheslines made millions more. But even Shirley Temple, the brightest kid star in the sky, faced Hollywood's tough truth. Kids grow up. As she hit teen years, her ticket sales dropped big time. 20th Century Fox, the studio that had made tons from her kid fame, dropped her deal when she turned 12. After a few failed tries at teen roles, including a screen test for The Wizard of Oz that didn't work. Shirley quit films at the super young age of 22. But unlike many old kid stars who faded into nothing or fought the loss of fame, Shirley Temple Black, as she became known after marriage, made one of the best comebacks in American public life. After raising her kids, she went into politics, running not winning for Congress or being picked as a UN helper in 1969. Her diplomat job grew as she became U.S. ambassador to Ghana and later to Czechoslovakia, proving her skills went way beyond dimpled smiles and tap dancing. Shirley kept a nice public face all her life, hardly showing anger about her big drop from Hollywood's top. When asked about her amazing trip from kid star to diplomat, she once said, "I have one piece of advice for those who want to become actors. Don't." Her later job in public help until her death in 2014 showed that leaving Hollywood's lights didn't mean vanishing from real help to people. A good lesson for kid stars who followed in her tiny tap shoes. Dog face for millions of Americans who grew up in the 1950s. Tommy Rettig was simply Jeff Miller, the first boy owner of the famous dog in the Lassie TV series. With his all-American looks and easy way with the dog star, Tommy became a home name and one of the most known kid actors of his time. But Tommy's tie with fame was tricky. By 14, he had grown more and more uneasy with his star life and the limits it put on his normal growing up. In a choice that shocked bosses, he asked to be let go from his Lassie deal, walking away from what many saw as a dream job. The real life after Lassie proved hard. Like many kid actors, Tommy found that casting folks had trouble seeing him as anything but the boy with the famous dog. Roles got rare, and by his late teens, Tommy had mostly vanished from TV and films. His grown-up years followed a bumpy road. In the 1960s, he was caught for growing pot, a guilty call that hurt more his chances of bringing back his acting job. Struggling to find his spot, Tommy tried many jobs, farm helper to computer coder. Funny enough, it was in this last job that Tommy finally found happy life after fame. Becoming an early pro in database coding, he set himself as a respected software helper and writer of coding books. A job as far from Hollywood as you can get, Tommy died at age 54 in 1996, having lived a life full of big changes. 8. Diana Sarah Carey, Baby Peggy